We are
Okay.
now.
I'll call the meeting of the Parks and Natural Resources Committee to order. Exactly 7 o'clock.
Never happens.
Okay. Okay, minutes from November 21st.
Okay.
Motion to accept this presented.
I move that we accept the minutes.
Okay, and I'll take
I'll
Miranda
second.
as a second. Anybody opposed? Okay. And that brings us to opportunities for public comment.
And me?
That's you. You're the public
Okay.
and you're here to comment.
And
I'm
we're
really
technically
nervous
supposed to
talking.
limit you to 5 minutes.
Oh,
on the
I
town
will take
council
like
role.
2 minutes. Hi, my name is Larissa Kupris. I live in town and I just recently attended Government Academy because I'm interested in advocating for a community dog park. So I made a few bullet points, if I could read those. So for background, I have a Labradoodle. His name is Rupert. He has been raised going to dog parks in both New York City and Durham, North Carolina, where I was previously living. In those places, there were multiple dog park options. I found that dog parks are a place to bring together people who share a love of animals and a way to connect members of the community. They provided an established place for dogs to run off leash together and have fun. Since moving to stores, I have felt the absence of the dog park energy. There is an amazing push for kid-centric events and programming for seniors in town. But I do believe there's an untapped potential for bringing together people who want to do things with their dogs or animals. And there are other places such as in South Windsor and West Hartford that have built dog parks, but those are quite far. So that's my pitch.
Do you have a recommendation for where to put it?
So yeah, I feel like there's been ongoing conversation about that. I think there's a few places that were in mind, but I don't know the exact locations off the top of my head. But it's been, I think, on the books for a couple of years. There's been a few ideas tossed around.
That's what I was asking, because we have every place we've looked at seriously, there's been some kind of negative.
Yeah.
Yeah, one, we really did try to find a spot at Bicentennial Park,
Mhm.
but the risk to the water resources was just not able to be overcome.
Mhm.
Also, it was much too close to the park property line for the comfort of the neighbor.
Yeah.
What do you look for in a dog park other than a gathering place? Are there specific amenities that you particularly utilized or you heard from other people were critical?
I mean, in terms of the water supply, I would imagine that would be needed for cleaning the dog park, but some of the dog parks, especially in Durham, in North Carolina, that they did not regularly use water for any particular reason that I remember. So unless, like, I'm not sure what the purpose, totally, like, I guess in envisioning, like, I'm not sure what the purpose for the water source would
I
be.
think people are concerned about contamination of it from too much.
Yeah, but
Too much
the other thing that is there's an insistence on people that are advocating for that there'll be a source of dog drinking water.
Okay, yeah, I guess I don't know, like,
Yeah,
the
and
exact
from what,
specifics
if when
of
I'm
it.
interpreting you as saying, at least in the hot south, that's not provided by the dog park.
No, that wasn't.
So then it's not a deal breaker for having one.
Not necessarily.
People typically also bring water for their dogs in summer. So, yeah, I think it depends on location. If there's access to like water that you could supply for dogs, then people probably would utilize it, but the dog parks can run pretty autonomously, like the ones I've experienced. I think the concern I've heard is like liability reasons, and I think that would stick out more, but even then. I guess,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, one
usually
of the
just a
ne-
sign posted at your own risk.
Yeah, one of the negatives that I guess we have to call her now the animal control officer, no, I'm
Yeah.
gonna call her a dog warden. Was they're a great site for abandonment of dogs.
I mean, she would be the expert on that. Again, my experience is there's dog parks all over the place, so I don't know, there's like a lot of resistance, and
Yeah.
I don't know if that. Maybe more like a dog expert about dog parks would be useful to come in.
Yeah,
But it just seems like everywhere else I've lived, there's dog parks all over the place.
I mean, the counterpoint to that is it's a relatively safe abandoned place for abandonment for
Yeah.
a dog, because it's fenced in.
If somebody's gonna get
And
rid of
If
their,
they're gonna get rid of their dog, they're gonna do
Yeah.
it probably in a safe area for the animal and for other
yeah,
people.
that's what my personal thought was.
That's my
You know,
thought is, it's almost like having a safe drop point.
in terms
the
of,
equivalent of the safe haven in the
Correct.
emergency room.
Not that we want more abandoned dogs, but my
Yeah.
guess is that it won't so much increase the numbers as just allow them to be done in a safer manner.
in terms of locations,
Mhm.
in terms of so New York City is a very different environment from Durham.
Mhm.
And in these places, did you often find that dog parks that would be most popular or have a really healthy population of people going to them were in the middle of kind of a core where people were already walking, or did ones that were a bit out of the way that you had to deliberately go to, were those also well trafficked?
So in Durham, there were different options. So there's like a variety of different, it depends on how much space. So I think the location is key, because if it was built kind of more in the downtown area, then like there were a few within like the apartment district of Durham, which is like a downtown area. And then there were more expansive dog park options that were more located near like walking paths. So if you're already going on a trail to walk your dog, then they would be located off of the walking trail.
Makes sense.
So I think it just depends on the location that's offered, but I think that's also up for debate depending on the space.
Those little areas off the areas off the walking trail,
Mhm.
how large would they be?
It would be like, I would say, like at least an acre,
Yeah,
but that was pretty big.
Yeah,
And those
that's-
were
that's-
really
that's-
like,
that's, an acre is a little league baseball field.
yeah, that one was expansive because there was more room. It wasn't
Yeah.
located in a downtown area.
Yeah, I was just getting a sense for how that would work.
I think it depends, because like I also, in that particular area near the walking trails, there was a small dog area and a large dog
Yeah,
area, which I think is useful, especially like to have dogs, the smaller dogs separated from larger
Yeah.
dogs. It
Keeps
does
animals safe.
reduce,
Yeah.
like the risk of issues between the dogs.
I live in Glastonbury, and there's a dog
Oh,
park
yeah.
there that has there's a lot of wood chips in it.
Mhm.
In your experience, would these dog parks generally be built with just a natural vegetation base, or would they tend to be built with something like a wood chip base?
So the dog park near in the walking trail area that I was just describing, that was natural grass, but that did get quite muddy. So, but I think that's also dependent on like the location and the land, like what the land is like. So the more downtown ones had like an AstroTurf.
Mhm.
So,
Potentially easier to clean.
yeah.
yeah,
But see, that's like the
Have
water source issue, and that's like where
yeah,
I could see you would need a water source if and
Yeah.
that was a smaller.
yeah.
I would think that it would really need some shade.
Yes,
I mean,
oh yeah,
the-
the shade.
The playground here is great, except for there's no shade.
That's by design. It tires your kids out faster because they're being dehydrated. So
tires the parents out faster. There's nowhere to go and stand in
Yeah,
the
no.
shade while you watch your kids run around.
That was a problem. in
So
Durham,
you
though.
just basically, you're there hovering underneath the structure.
They do have like.
But I
those-
mean, dogs in particular, they're not gonna say when they're
Yeah, dogs,
Yeah.
I mean. they're
thirsty,
pretty-
they're not gonna
yeah.
come running and say water bottle, please, necessarily. Some of them will, but
Yeah.
you know, so,
The AstroTurf can get hot
yeah.
also, so like, I feel, well, Durham is exceptionally hot in the summer, so
Hate
the
us.
dog park was like less utilized in the mist of summer.
Yeah, my sister retired to Columbia.
Oh, okay, yeah, so.
Given that we really don't have very many concentrated apartment areas yet,
Really?
Yeah.
They're coming. Seems like-
but and most of the people who might have dogs are rural and car focused. Would driving to a dog park be a problem?
Again, I think it's like the locations that are possible because, like that more spread out, like dog park and off the walking trail, people who were already driving and parking at those walking trails, that parking was already accommodated by that.
You have a lot of students actually who have small dogs of various kinds and who are
Mhm.
going to make heavy use of a dog park if it's locally based in
Yeah.
a more built up
It's
area.
a really
For
nice
better or
way
worse, that's
to
one of the
promote
things.
community too, like dog people. Especially like, I mean, again, there's so many kid-centric events locally that I learned about through Government Academy, and there's a lot of dog people. And I feel like it really is an untapped kind of market to create community place for.
I seem to recall that the standard, the apartment up at Four Corners, does have a small dog area.
They do
Yeah.
have a small one. It's I'd call it more of like a run or a pad than a park. It's probably 100 feet by 20. It's off to the side of the existing pump house that they've kind of built the standard around at the north end of the development. And yeah, they just finished seeding that and put in the water there. But so the folks who are there and have pets might be able to use that. But it's
It's not the same.
not quite the same. It's a
Yeah.
larger area for the animals to run around in.
Yeah, it struck me looking at the plans for it, that it was kind of the equivalent of one of those areas you see at a rest area when you're
Mhm.
traveling. You know,
Yeah.
not a real place
It's
to.
kind of like a place to let your dog like go to the restroom. In my experience, I've seen those, they have those in Durham,
Yeah,
so.
In your experience, one of most of our meeting is gonna be looking at the
Plan of
plan
conservation
of
and development,
conservation
yeah.
development.
Mhm.
But one of the things they talk about is third places. Is a dog park
Oh, yeah.
the kind of place where people might go to congregate and socialize in addition to their dogs?
I mean, in Durham, I still have like a dog park chat. And it creates like community, even like assisting with things, if someone needs resources or things, it really helps bring together. People are like dog sitting, like it really expands outside of the dog park itself. Which I think really, it helped connected me to the community there, and I moved there in the pandemic without knowing anyone. So, and stores, I have some built-in connections, but otherwise I do find it's hard to find places to just go if I don't have a child.
Oh, lack of third places is noted as a big problem for lots of people in lots of places in modern life. And so the planning department's very aware of that. It's just struggling to figure out new ways to connect folks.
I have a question. That would be, it seems like if you have all these dogs pooping, then you need like those little poop gloves and you need a garbage can and an ethic that says when your dog poops, it's your problem, not the town's problem to clean it up. And what, in your experience, do people clean up after their dogs?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple people who stray from that rule, but generally speaking, if there's a sign and other dog park people usually hold other people accountable for that.
not the old peer pressure.
Yeah.
check.
You're kind of known as the person who doesn't clean up,
You know,
Yeah.
but there are people who do that, but I feel like there's also people who tend to then clean up more after those people,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's fair or not.
I was just gonna say, to what extent is it gonna require some kind of upkeep by the town in terms of having someone check on it to clean up things that have been left behind? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm sure some. So in terms of this topic, this is something that when the Parks and Rec Master Plan was being discussed, one of the recommendations that came out of the plan was to continue to consider where it might make sense to have a dog park. What would this body like to think about for next steps? Who would we like to get some more information from about dogs and dog parks? I think we heard some questions about maintenance, what maintenance obligations there are. So there are other towns with dog parks in the state. Larissa, you mentioned a couple of them.
Putnam has a fairly large one.
Would be
Oh,
good to
I didn't know
locate a
that.
peer
Oh, that's good.
municipality
Mhm.
that has one that looks like something that we can envision having for ourselves and be able to talk to them about the kind of maintenance that
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
required
Yeah.
for it and what goes
Um,
into
I
it.
think
Ju-
Putnam might be a
Yeah.
good candidate for that.
Yeah, Juliana did some research and put together some notes. That was back, 3 or 4 years ago.
She should be at our site walk on Monday, presuming it actually
Yeah.
gets warmer and we don't all shelter in our houses as opposed to walking up the side of the mountain. And Juliana's supposed to be there, so we can
Yeah.
ask her when she's
Yeah.
there, if
Yeah,
she could
she
bring
still
those.
has a copy of it. I may have them someplace. Disappeared in my computer, because she put together a nice little, if you would, talking point to consider. Yeah.
I can reach out to the animal control officer, just ask about, from the animal control standpoint, and animal welfare, how dog parks help and also some of the issues they cause, which will probably
Yeah.
tie back to maintenance. And so I can do that and make some phone calls and return
Yeah,
next time with a report.
Yeah, because I assume that, like, just about all the other town staff, she's tapped into an organization for networking. As you probably learned that the town is very supportive of staff communicating with peers elsewhere.
Yeah, I learned a lot about the
Yeah.
town and government academy that I didn't know, so. And I'm not, by any means a dog park expert, because I'm a dog park attendee. And I'm happy to get involved by getting information or anything I can do to support the cause,
Well,
but.
I've only been to dog parks with my grand dogs, so
Oh,
you have more experience than I do.
yeah, yeah, I mean, they're all different, so I think you can create the atmosphere you want to. So kind of build it as you would like to see it, kind of thing, but I think it would be important to get information from.
Yeah.
Other dog park.
And was there a fee associated with any of these parks you used?
No,
Hypothetically, the town could, to pay for maintenance, could add a small surcharge on any dog license
Oh,
that they
yeah.
issue in town.
Okay.
Since we do have dog licenses
Mhm.
for all pets, and up to, I think, a certain number, if you have like a certain number of dogs, you need a kennel license, and then
Yeah.
that becomes a flatter rate. But adding a small surcharge, maybe $5 or $10 on that
it's
could
pretty affordable.
help
I have
to,
say right now.
Yeah. Is that-
capture enough money to pay for staff time for maintenance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is that supported by state law?
I believe so, because I do believe that dog licensing fees are variable in different towns, but I will ask the
And
town
there's-
attorney.
That would bring up a question of people from out of town using services, not paying. And the reason I brought up the fee issue is because the Parks and Rec master plan looked at monetizing any kind of facility
Right.
that the Parks and Rec department was sponsoring.
People from other towns typically do go to other dog parks.
I guess that's one
Also that.
interesting question too, is which towns would we expect to see, how many other towns, not
Mhm.
which, but how
Right.
many would we expect to?
Yeah.
To
To bring
funnel,
in.
like what towns around us do not have them?
Right. And
Be
then
relevant
when
to
we
that.
come to the question of likely site, my understanding, I was not here for the conversations, but my understanding is that River Park is a large open area that is currently very underutilized. And as a large flat open space could be relatively easy to improve for a dog park. But if there is a general fear of not wanting folks from other towns to be able to use the resource being paid for by folk in this town, we might want to consider something closer into the core of town as opposed to River Park
Yeah.
on the edge, because that way, if people are hungry, they still wind up eating at businesses in the town in order to bring economic activity into the town and act as an economic boom.
Yeah.
I don't think that that is necessarily needed, but it is a consideration for that.
I don't know that that would happen though, if you have a dog that you have to leave in the car while you're getting a burger. at
Depending on
noon.
the time of year, a lot of people will sit outside with their dogs, and some dogs, many dogs
Yeah.
at this point are emotional support animals or whatever, and do end up going in.
But there are some restaurants which are dog friendly
Mhm.
and they wind up stopping at the dairy bar, which I believe
Yeah,
they
Rupert
can
goes there all the time.
access and then pay their money there. But
I forgot there is a dog park in Cary, which is next to Durham, and they actually, and this could get way too complicated, but they had a QR code you had to scan to get in. To
to
the
open the
park.
gate, interesting.
So you bought your pass from the library and you like registered your dog there, so they knew the dogs that were registered. And then there was like a QR access.
I mean, our library is already familiar with doing that kind of
So
thing.
Mhm.
I forgot
Yeah.
that was, I could send like
It's
a
an
link
interesting
to that one.
concept.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could email that to
It's the
me.
kind
Yeah.
of thing we already have at some of the facilities the library provides, and I don't think it would surprise many town members to have to do something like that.
That dog park was really nice, actually, one of the best ones. But that actually was also nice because I knew all the dogs that were there with my dog were registered in advance.
Right.
So then that took off some like,
It also provides some control over if there ends up being a problem animal,
Yeah.
which might help the town in terms of, the potential is there to say, no, your dog keeps attacking other dogs, you no
Right.
longer can have
Yeah.
access to this.
Right.
facility.
Yeah, that could be useful.
Mm.
So I think staff will do a little bit of research. Larissa, you'll send me some of that information.
Yeah.
And then on Monday, when we see Juliana, we'll ask her to dredge up some stuff, send it out
Yeah. she
for
still
the
has a
next
copy
packet.
of that. Yeah.
For the stuff that was done the last time this was considered. And we'll do a little bit more information gathering before deciding what to suggest to Parks and Rec director for things to pursue. Budgets
Yeah.
are being put together now. So insofar as thinking about if this was to be a project that could cost several $100,000, asking for capital sequestration over a few years to fund the project would be something we'd want to start thinking about
Yeah.
over the next couple of months.
one other thought I just had in terms of the maintenance, maybe if, there's so many committees in town, like if there is a dog park committee, that could be like useful and volunteering to help maintain the dog park. Just
Yeah.
one thought. If
Of
that were an issue. with, like,
Friends of the Dog Park
Or friends.
Yeah,
volunteer
those-
group
That might help with
could,
the worry about the.
if you want to drum up support among
Yeah.
fellow dog people,
Yeah.
that would be
It's
wonderful.
hard to meet them without a dog park.
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
Baseball, dog parks, so.
I know our priest at Marks takes their dog walking on campus to meet other people.
Oh, yeah, I take Rupert to meet the students. They love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Makes them really.
The students do love
I
that.
also have a dog birthday party dog, and I've met a lot of people that way. So they come to
So,
my house
yeah.
unofficially. At the
Michael?
dog park.
Yes,
Do you know, I seem to recall something about Willimantic, about to or just built a dog park.
They have an unofficial dog park meetup. I
Yeah,
don't know if
they
there's
were
official
talking
dog
of
park, but-
establishing one on their little park on Plains Road. But I couldn't quite figure out where they had physical room for one.
I
Been
will,
down there in a while.
They like have a group that meets weekly unofficially. I
Yeah.
have heard of that group.
I will reach out. Willimantic is interestingly enough, Mansfield tends to wind up talking more to Coventry, Ashford, and Willington than Willimantic. You go down the hill and it's like an insurmountable distance. Information takes a lot longer to travel up it. So I
Yeah.
just haven't talked to them as much, but I will reach out to Willimantic to find
Yeah,
out.
even
There's also a factor, the fact that we're in capital region and they're not.
Right,
When
Yeah.
they disbanded the Wyndham area regional government,
right.
there was a line at the bottom of the hill, basically.
Yeah,
But we have as a consequence, the water company, Wyndham Waterworks is in Mansfield, but I've talked to them only 2 or 3 times in total, right? So
Yeah.
it's compared to other people. So I will strike up a conversation with Willimantic and find out.
yeah.
Wyndham.
Actually, you have to say Wyndham.
It's true.
Thanks
Um,
for letting me come.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yes,
If
yes.
there's anything else,
Yes,
I'm
yeah,
happy to
yeah,
help,
Yeah,
whatever.
you're welcome to stay until we go into executive session.
We're
I
gonna,
Like it
think I'm
pretty
gonna
dull.
go home to eat dinner.
That's
But thank
fair.
you.
For the exciting last name.
Oh, it's KUP. KUP
Uh-huh.
RIS as in Sam.
I got it
Kupris.
right.
Yeah. My dad used to make bread in this area, so sometimes
Oh,
people remember Kupris.
Yes. Remember the bread well.
Yeah, so good. All right, thank you.
So do you
Thank
have his
Bye.
recipe so you
Good
can,
evening.
you can
No
move
one's
into that
been able
niche?
to replicate that. It's so sad. Yeah.
Yes,
if you find it digging through cabinets one day.
I know.
yes,
Would be nice.
Y-
Okay.
yes.
Bye.
Thank
yes,
you.
Nice
yes.
to meet
Go-
you
Go
all.
see the flower girl in Hebron.
Be right back.
Absolutely. Okay, let's pull up our agenda and share it.
Okay, that brings us to management plans.
And stepped out for a minute.
Yeah,
Everyone who was here was on our walk. We learned some stuff.
Yeah.
Kinda.
and the stuff that I asked Michael to share, was, well, the trail classification was as we were talking on the walk, but the different land use nouns that I had came from me trying to work the Dorwat Lions Field plan.
So.
Mhm.
Is one of the things maybe we should do is look through the management plan for Eagleville. Just scroll through it now and see what we would
Yeah.
want to put in the different areas, actually work through that, because we're gonna be trying to do it for Coney Rock, and in theory, I was thinking about printing things out and bringing it with me, but I'm kind of doubting my ability to write in the weather that we're gonna.
Is fair.
Your brain will be home by Thursday.
So yeah, we could, I know we have the P O C D to discuss.
Yeah.
And that is
It's gonna take a
a,
while.
it's has the potential to take some time.
I'm gonna
Um,
be feeling sick.
Miranda's gonna leave strategically. The question of what we would like to discuss tonight, there's definitely a lot we could do. For management plans, we could take the Eagleville Preserve plan in from 95 and then look at the template and try to start figuring out how to work them together
Mhm.
based on what we saw in the field. Or we could table that for now.
If we have a
and-
lot of other stuff we have to do today, then we should probably table it.
The P O C D, we kind of have a deadline for the middle of next month.
Right.
And listening at, I know Charlotte was there, I know Ken, you
I
were
was
there. You know, I came to the conclusion, I have to compliment people on this committee on their willingness. Some of the other chairs of the committees that were asked to respond to things go coming up with all kinds of reasons why they couldn't make the asked dates. And I have to compliment people on their willingness to put in effort.
Although I believe, Vicky you did send me an email noting that perhaps a special meeting in February, as opposed to attempting to cram all of our thoughts into the following hour and 29
Yeah,
minutes
that's what
and
I was,
declare ourselves done.
Yeah, I
Um,
think we're gonna have to visit it again and.
yeah.
Okay.
I've had a couple thoughts about that, Michael. I have gone through chapters 2 and 3. I have 3 pages of notes, and I don't mean notes, I mean 3 pages of a list of the things to talk about. And that made me realize that we do really need to have a lot of time to do this as a committee. Another option is to have a subcommittee that will go through this and then come back to the committee. That's another way to handle this.
Maybe we
Or
could,
we could do one chapter tonight, meet again, do another chapter another night. There really is a lot to talk about in those chapters. So
Yes, no, there is.
I don't have a solution, but I just,
There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot in those chapters. I have 2 pages of notes that, and the only reason I only have 2 pages is because some of these notes are me checking a box where I know we've done it and I know where the proof is. And or I know we haven't done it. And therefore I can go, well, we haven't done that, and didn't need to discuss it any further.
Yeah, but the response of not doing it has there's 2 answers. One, why wasn't it done, or was it completely dismissed?
Right, did we attempt to try to do it, and just run into a whole bunch of hurdles, or did we just not even start?
Or did we do it and nobody funded it?
Right, and that's
And
another thing.
I think we need to make a distinguishing factor of we couldn't get to it, or we tried and it didn't get funded. Like a
Right,
dog park.
Or it just didn't seem, what we tried didn't work?
The one question I have.
Mhm.
Is, are we just focusing on the action items?
right now, because as we are talking about, this is a lot of pages of a lot of stuff, and if we don't just focus to start on, did the action items get done, we will get sucked down into all sorts of the minutia. And to stay out of that mire, we should focus on the action items. That's not to say that we can't discuss things in the chapters that we feel need to be updated. As a matter of fact, I do want that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff in here that may be out of date. We know some of that we need to get the current data. But in general, we should focus on centering the conversation on the action items. And then for each action item, if there's stuff that, back in this chapter, this was a problem, right? As it pertains to this action item, we bring it up then. I think that's the only way we're gonna get through this without calling the special meeting every week for the next month. And I know that you will kill me, if I have to do that.
I was about to suggest that we just find 2 nights in a row, start at 6 PM and just go through 1 chapter a night and we can just. kill the
We can
thing.
also do that.
One thing I did this afternoon was go through the other chapters and look at whether there were action items that had Parks and Rec or Open Space Preservation Committee listed as an actor.
Mhm.
And I have a list of all those.
Okay,
Most of them are ongoing actions, and we can make a simple decision to, yeah, it's a good thing to keep doing.
that's good. So I imagine there were probably some things in infrastructure, probably some things in housing.
Housing.
where are the action items listed?
So I'm gonna pull up the,
Michael, before we go further,
Moved.
No,
Michael, I would like to get a sense of what we are trying to accomplish. I think it would help us know how to address this. The updated plan, is it going to be the current plan with changes to bring it up to date? For example, correct statistics, or an action item has been completed? Or is this going to be completely new?
the plan is to mostly be the current plan with our updates on where we are on all of our goals, new statistics, and for if there are areas where we feel we have neglected to properly provide information or things we want to look at. For example, climate, we're doing a bigger look at climatics and resilience in this one. Is the plan. We're going to do a updated climate risk assessment. With all of that, we will add new stuff, but this is not meant to be a rip out and start fresh.
Yes, I agree, but I'm trying to understand the format here. Will
Yes.
the plan simply be republished with revisions? Is that the goal here?
As opposed
For
to,
example, an action item, if it has been accomplished, if the plan says the town should do this, and in fact, the town has done this, is the wording simply changed that this has been accomplished? Do you see why I'm asking this question? I mean, I think we need to know what we're trying to achieve here in terms of the actual product.
Well, I think
that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
they asked us in the first meeting. They asked us to look at each action item and essentially give it a letter code. How they're gonna deal with those letter codes, I don't know. It could be that they're gonna just reissue the whole goals section of each chapter with an update based on the current status. But we also need to identify anything that has come to light since 2015 that we should add as a goal or actions.
Yes.
But Vicky, I don't think you were at the meeting. They
No,
asked to identify for each action, whether it was completed, ongoing, initiated but not yet done, not yet complete, abandoned, in other words, initiated but dead in the water.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Dismissed, in other words, never initiated, or under consideration, or unknown.
okay, so the work has already been done, correct?
Well,
No, we are to go through each of our responsible action items and code them like this.
no. Well, Chapter 2 and 3, we were charged with basically grading the action items, if you would, and it's actually, Conservation Commission was given the same charge and the Agricultural Committee. So there'll be 3 sets of grades coming in.
if you look on your, on the screen I'm sharing, you'll see that there's a who under each action. So the goal has a strategy. Within each strategy, there are a bunch of actions. And then within each action, there is a list of who it is that is in some way responsible for this. Your body, Conservation Commission, and Agriculture have a lot of overlap in terms of who shows up on these various things. So you have received chapters 2 and 3. As Ken noted, there are some other goals scattered throughout which may live within your committee. But for example, so if we were to start taking this activity, we would say the action for strategy A, action 1, chapter 2.1 is using the town website, monthly newsletter, and Parks and Rec seasonal brochure to advertise educational programs. This belongs to Parks Advisory Committee, now you, and Conservation Commission. It's ongoing. How are we doing? I think we could all agree it's ongoing.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah.
It gets done. So we can just say 21A1 is ongoing, and then move to the next one
And keep it.
and keep it.
Yeah.
It's 21A1 is ongoing and it's good. It doesn't need to come out. It's something we're,
Okay, do we have to give it a code?
yes, we give it the code O for ongoing. We code it. That is what our consultant has asked us to do.
So it's, when we see something like that, there's no room for saying, okay, it would be good. Actually, this is something where the, you know, for example, we have walks that don't seem to be advertised very well.
No, that's actually the perfect place to say this is
Okay.
it is ongoing, and then we put in a comment. We can
Okay.
put in our
Yeah.
comments of this is something we think should be done better.
Mhm.
And that's perfectly fine.
Okay, so do we have a table that we're filling out?
We can, yes. This was left in terms of how everybody does this up to the committees.
Yeah.
Because all we need back in a concrete way is the code. Because there are some committees that I know are going to give us less back than you find folks who I know are going to give me a very in-depth set of things. I expect Parks Advisory Committee to not dive anywhere near as, not Parks Advisory, Rec Advisory to not dive anywhere near as deep
I don't
as
suppose
PRC.
these tables that are there can just be output so that we can add another column and put our comments and stuff. right there.
It's not gonna be super easy for me to do it right now, but with Adobe, I can probably pop this out into an edit table and then,
Because that seems
export
like
it.
the way to organize
Yeah.
this. I mean, and I really, yeah, I have Excel open right now, but I'm looking and think I'm not typing all this.
no,
No.
nor would I. If I was at my desktop, I could pop this out in 10 minutes.
But I mean, what can happen now is a column could be created that can be inserted in the table that you
Yeah.
export.
Yeah.
Later.
I see
So,
two columns, grade
I-
and comment.
I have, yeah, so code
And
and comment. So I have action and you put, so I can put in action A1. Is that the section we're in?
Yeah, so goal 2.1, strategy A, action 1. So I write these as 2.1 A1.
2.1A1, okay. And then we need a code and we need comments.
Yep,
Okay,
great.
I'm ready to
Well, I think-
type. Can
I
we
think
move?
the thing is, it'd be pretty easy to go through and look at the codes.
Yep.
Some things may not need comments.
They may not.
And other things, and that's where we're gonna need the February meeting, is to actually distill our comments.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly reasonable. If we would like to attempt to go down the list, and if we get stuck on something that has a lot of comments, we can say just revisit in February, call a special meeting and revisit in February. We can do that. So that way we make some progress on chapter 2 today. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right.
I think we should do a pilot right now
All right.
with
Oh,
2
yeah.
or 3 of the strategies and see how it's going, and then decide how we're going to proceed.
Okay.
Now, I have a hard copy of the tables, and she's
Yeah.
got it open in Excel. So we'll have two.
Well, she's got an
Captures.
Excel sheet to
Okay.
capture our thoughts, not,
So
yeah.
Right,
So 2.1A1,
Mhm.
use the town website, monthly newsletters, and Parks and Rec seasonal brochure to advertise educational programs related to resource conservation and activities that allow people of all ages to connect with nature, including guided walks, canoe kayak tours. This is within our purview. It is ongoing. It was ongoing. We agree that it is ongoing. So we code it with an O.
Mhm.
But what comments do we have about how well we're doing this? If any.
Organized events are sometimes underattended and we need to find better ways to spread the word,
Publicize.
to publicize.
Yep.
And I think some of that is how people get their information has changed
Yeah,
since 2015.
yeah,
And I
Facebook.
don't know that we have moved with the times.
no. No,
X.
the town's
Green
Facebook
space,
presence, or I
whatever.
should say, social media presence is fairly weak.
Without a. So the reason these comments may be good is because if this comes up from a lot of people about all of these events, then one of the potential action items that may wind up coming out of the POCD, a new action would be hire a social media coordinator for the town to actually engage with new things. If we get feedback like this on lots of stuff,
Yeah.
it creates a new goal potentially.
And what I wrote down was outreach could be improved.
Outreach could be improved.
Yeah.
So
Could be improved.
Now, is that comment going to be in this updated town plan?
well, right now, the comment is critical for staff and our consultant to it understands the problems that are occurring across all of the ways we've been attempting to implement this. And then to come back to you with, here are some additional things we think we should do when we present you with based on where we are and then all of your comments, we synthesize and say, what about this as a new part of the plan going forward? We're not going to put in your comment in a box that says we could do better at this.
Yeah.
And in a comments column, but what we might do is we might have for our 2025 POCD, what we might do is we might put in a different font color, new goals compared to our 2015 goals. We might have our 2015 goals carried forward and then new goals for 2025 to 2035.
Yeah, in this case, I could also see us, the text for the goal being reworded.
Yep.
And obviously, at least in some publications of the plan, the changes should be highlighted.
Right. So yeah, would definitely be, I definitely think this won't be complete unless we have a comparative to 2015 plan to see how we've changed and how
Yeah.
we're figuring
Yeah.
out where we're going. But yeah, whether or not we have these as new goals or we reword things, I don't know yet.
Yeah,
We've got like 10 months to figure that out.
What we're doing is grading this plan, not writing the next one.
We gotta do that first.
But what we need to make recommendations for the next one.
That's
not at
comments.
this time, Vicky, we've not been asked to do recommendations till phase 2. We should probably, as Jennifer phrased it, a parking lot to put the thought in of how we could do a better job, but not do anything with it now.
The consultant is going to do something with this, or
Ahead
staff is.
of what the consultant has asked us to do.
Okay,
So I have organized events are sometimes underattended and we need better ways to publicize. Public communication venues are changing. Outreach could be improved, possibly with better use of social media.
That's a great comment.
Yeah.
So
Next
moving to 2182, improve signage on town lands, interpreting functions of plants, wildlife, waterways, and wetlands, and their benefits. This is noted as something that is ongoing because we're always trying to improve that. I wasn't here in 2015. How's the signage changed over the past 10 years? Do we feel like signage has gotten better?
Well, when at Eagleville, we discovered that most of the signs were gone.
We're missing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not great.
I mean, we have the recent signage for the actual denoting where the parks are, but the interpreting functions a lot of them are missing. Like
or have never been done in the first place.
the walk we were on last week, all the signs were missing for, I don't know what kind of signage
Tom and
constrained
Sue
themselves
did
to.
that. Did have done a couple of brochures, but they've never gone to signage. They did what, they did a walking, a trail activity guide for River Park, and did they do it for the loop around Bicentennial Pond? I'm trying to remember. They've never gone to the state of signage and they haven't been well published.
I don't know, but I think that in any case, there are just a lot of the signs in our areas and reserves that are still missing.
Yeah,
So,
I think one of the things, we don't even know what signs should be there.
No, so there was one, what's the reserve? There's one over near Mansfield City Road, and it stretches between that one and another road.
Denham, downtown Forest.
There's a really cool old well in there covered with plexiglass and everything, and there's a post for a sign, and at some point I actually, with Jennifer's permission, started to try and dig up information that should be on the sign or something. I never got anywhere with it. But that one, for example, like you said, we don't even know what's supposed to be on it.
So I think this is one where it's ongoing, but we have failed to deliver.
so there's lots of missing signs. That can be our comment, is there's lots of signs have gone missing. And our,
But there is the new signage that you guys just did for the,
we just put up new
Initiatives.
of those.
So that's-
So those
Yeah.
are, those are wayfinding signs.
Yeah, that's
Not
not what's
interpretive,
implied
okay,
by
yeah.
Interpretive
this.
Sure.
functions are,
okay,
we are
that's what I
not
meant
doing
by I'm not
great,
sure
right?
what we.
Interpretive signs, we're not doing great on delivering on. Now, Charlotte did dig up the, she did leave the meeting, but she did dig up the old Merhoff walking trail, the ones that we saw were all missing. She's just validating the information, and then I'm gonna get those reprinted and get those back up. I've got an Eagle Scout, that Eagle Scout signage that folks looked at when I sent that
Yeah.
around. The trails have been cleared for that, and those signs are being ordered. So that way, once the ground thaws, they'll get them in the ground.
I missed that one.
But so there is some signage that's ongoing. But yeah, we could do
I
a
think
better
the
job.
thing that needs to be done is, just as I'm sure you have an inventory of the wayfinding signs,
Yep,
we need an inventory and an archive of what other signages we put up for interpretation.
that's a very good point. I think that's a good comment.
A
Because
thought on this whole thing, as well as physical signs in place, doing something with an app that senses your location, your geographic location, and gives you an interpretive text.
that would be really advanced.
Yeah,
Could be a cool add-on to CT Trail Finder. Almost like one of those old like walking tours where you get to the location and you press the next button and it feeds you something about what you're
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at, those tours by phone. That would be a cool integration. I can't make that. I can barely code. But
well,
Many
I-
of the interpretive signs in open spaces are missing, faded, or incomplete. There is a need to assess which signs can be reproduced from existing town files and which need to be rewritten.
that's a great,
And what signs might be added? I mean, why are we only talking about missing signs? Why
Yeah.
aren't we talking about opportunities for
I mean-
other interpretive signs?
Well, it says, the goal says improve signage, and improving it means creating more that
That's
helps
true.
educate. For
that's
instance,
true.
the Les Meyer off,
Or making
Uh,
what we have legible.
they didn't focus on a couple of invasives, and I think Charlotte's adding those.
Mhm.
Totally good. Um,
But I think
Signs
the
could
concept
be added.
having a sign
a sign
sign
archive. master
inventory
list.
and archive
Yeah.
is necessary to help not have this happen again.
Master lists for everything are something I feel very passionately about. 21A3 is a short-term goal to recognize efforts of local residents and businesses. This is not a goal for you. So this is not a Parks and Rec goal or Parks Advisory goal. So we'll move on to 21A4, sponsored demonstration projects on town properties that showcase good conservation and land management practices.
We have done some of that. We could continue to do more.
So I guess the question is, what has been done? Have we done something that would fall into this?
Some of the forest management at Dunham Forest.
There was,
Right.
there was a workshop done on the property where the agro greenhouses were gonna go. One, and I don't know, but don't recall who sponsored it on horse logging. That was quite a while ago,
I don't think they've been well publicized though,
no,
Coming back to our
coming back to the.
publicity,
yeah.
okay. I mean, we're actively working on attempting to do a big invasive species removal and timber salvage, followed by some climate smart forestry rejuvenation over at Wet and Woods.
Yeah.
So that's a project I've been working on for the past 6 months, and that's, I
Yeah.
get a quote for that tomorrow, which means it's getting off the ground finally.
And
Um,
the focus of this strategy is education.
Right,
So we need to make sure there's an education element and maybe some temporary signage. This looks like hell because we've cut down trees that are diseased and
I've got some of that. I'm working on it, and I got some folks at UConn I'm working on with. But yeah, the
And you see, you sent to all the butters a very nice letter.
we did.
Including.
I know you got one.
Including my mailbox.
But I know that we are in the process of initiating at least one of these. If you guys feel confident about saying that we have done others in the past, over the past 10 years, then we could consider this one an ongoing as we continue to do these. But I think the comment of these haven't generally been very well publicized in the past. The point is education. I think that continues to fly with one of our comments of 2181.
What I have is some projects of this type have been held, but are not recent and were not well publicized.
I love your ability to distill words down into
Yes.
fewer words.
Okay, I didn't give examples, and I don't know, I didn't mention whatever specific one you.
Don't worry about it. That's
Okay.
Don't tell her, tell the provost.
21A5, explore the development of an environmental education center. So this one says a 4-acre building area envelope has been set aside at the Moss Sanctuary for such a use. There's various other places that this would be appropriate. Clearly, this is something that hasn't been done, or rather, the development of an environmental education center has not happened. I don't know if exploration happened. I don't know to what degree over the past 10 years there were serious conversations. I know Sue Harrington would be able to tell me more because this is something
Yeah,
she feels
I
very
was
passionate
going to-
about.
I know that it's come up because I remember discussions with Sue Harrington. I know that
Yeah,
if there were options, it would be something I think it's a great.
I think I think it should stay in there. The one
I
thing
wish
I
we
would
had it.
say is that we now have 2 additional properties that should be included as where to explore.
The schools.
Correct.
Yep.
And we need to make that point explicitly.
yeah.
So-
In fact, one of them has an existing building that would be an ideal size. That little annex or whatever it's technically referred to
And it has adjacent preserved land.
yeah. You know, at Vinton.
So would we consider this one abandoned because it was started, or would we call this one a not started? Would we call this one a D?
Well, it's long-term, so
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah, and.
I would say it
and-
should be maybe under consideration of you.
Mhm.
Yeah, and, yeah, you know, because the actual phrasing is explore the development. You know,
I think you're right, Ken. I think this makes sense as a U,
Yeah.
as an
And
under
One of the
consideration.
things that they did say in the session 1 was they wanted a check mark for things that should be carried forward.
yeah,
Mhm.
And I think everything we talked about should be carried forward.
Right. This isn't something that was a one and done. This is a,
The sense I got from looking at the whole plan is where they're really gonna get a lot of, it's done, we don't have to have it anymore, is in the zoning reg changes.
Yeah.
This document was set up really to support zoning reg reconstruction. And so a lot of the action items talk about changing regulations. Those have been done.
Mhm.
And so they can go through and say, yes, yes, yes. But we've got a whole new things that we gotta add.
Yeah,
Yeah, there always is.
yeah,
Um,
okay.
so we'll call 2185 under consideration, and the comment would be,
This topic is still of interest. It has been explored, but not in depth. It is worth noting that recently a couple of town properties have become potential options for such an initiative.
God, you're good.
That work? Anything else?
I think that's great.
Okay.
So do we want to keep going through chapter 2? Vicky, you had said that you wanted to do a few of these as a pilot, feel out how we were doing. We could go on to strategy B for 2.1, or we go over to chapter 3, look at some of those. They're not really substantially different. These chapters are.
If they're not different, why don't we get a chunk done?
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
Well, I would like to remind you all that we have skipped over one of the items on the agenda,
yeah,
which
the
is permanent preservation of parks.
Um,
My concern is that we will wear ourselves out doing as much of the P O C D as we can, and we will not get around to talking about this topic.
do we want to set a hard cutoff in 20 minutes and 30 minutes and then finish up with, we'll put aside management plan updates for now because the POCD is pressing. We had a discussion about the dog park when we had the individual in the public who came to speak in public comment. So we could choose to table management plan updates for this meeting until March. We'll do our site walk for Coney Rock and then,
We should probably at least just discuss the site walk for Coney Rock. And
Yeah,
just that we're doing.
well, you have to
right?
figure out
Yes.
where, we have to
Just
figure out where we want to meet at least.
Yeah, that was in an email.
yes, it wasn't an email.
Well, but it was two options, far enough apart. that-
Figured I would
and
drive between them.
And I have another question on the agenda for that.
Sure.
Um,
Did I totally mess up the agenda for that? It's totally possible.
do we have the technology to do a hybrid site walk?
I thought I deleted them. Oh, the meeting, not the description. I left the location as hybrid site walk. I'll amend that.
So I have that we're either meeting at the parking lot on Chaffeeville Road or at the Dorwart Preserve. In my Google Calendar.
Yes,
Yeah,
so
That's why I said we at least have to decide where we're meeting, because
so let's,
Folks, there is no point in meeting at the Dorwart Preserve. We are looking at the town portion of this preserve.
yeah,
The access to that is at the Chaffeeville parking lot.
All right.
yeah. and
Chaffeeville Road.
Across from the, and there's a little bit of parking there and there's some across the road.
there is a little bit of parking there, so that was my comment here. I'm just gonna put on the
And I think the
basement.
reason the other location was suggested was for not having to go up that steep slope, but take the new trail on the Joshua's Trust portion to access the town property.
It is further. But I was trying to be considerate of everybody's health. We do
Well,
have-
we could walk up the access road from Mulberry Road, which is not as steep.
Yeah, there is
So as opposed to going in here,
Hey, it might get up to 39 on Monday.
we do the access road.
It's on that frontage.
Yeah, it's right there.
So,
And we can park at Chaffeeville Road and just walk up Mulberry Road to
It's-
the access road.
It's not that far, but it's a section of road you have to pay attention when you're walking it.
but that might be easier than attempting to do the great up the hill. I'm game to go up the hill. I just don't want to assume that everyone else is okay to go up the hill. I don't want to cause a medical incident. That is,
Yes, we need to walk both access points
yes,
for
but
two reasons. One, the steep trail that goes up crosses Chris Olson's property. And I'm sorry to get into details here, but somebody needs to check and make sure that the access to his property at the crossing is marked so that people do not enter his property. So we
Yeah.
need to walk on the steep part for that reason. We need to walk on the access road to make sure that it is still possible to access the top with a vehicle. That is the only fire access that anyone has to this preserve.
That's why I'm so glad I didn't just try to write that thing.
So we need to check both.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I'm thinking, Vicky,
maybe
that,
we should each go from one, have two different teams go from one point each
Yep.
in the middle.
yeah, and I'm thinking that what you reminded me is we should, whoever walks the steep section of trail should have with them some of the leaving town property signs.
Oh, for that crossing of Chris's
Yeah.
land. Yeah, just in case. I mean, we intended to mark it. It may have been marked, it may no longer be marked, I don't know.
I would go with the latter option that, because some of those signs I noticed tend to disappear, even the entering town land signs get torn down by some of the butters.
Right, yeah. And it's possible that Chris, I mean, I haven't been up there in a long time. It's possible that Chris has closed it off. I just don't know. We need to take a look.
it's been about a year since I was up there. So let us meet at the Chafeeville parking lot. There aren't a whole lot of parking spaces there. So
There are some ad hoc places across the road for the Chafee Mill.
There's additional
What if we
parking.
met at one, what if we actually, I mean, if we are limited for parking spaces, then why don't we all meet at Chafeeville? Some of us get into the other's car, go to Dorwart, then walk back one way. We don't have to do,
or rather, other way around, meet at Dorwart where there's
yeah,
plenty of
whichever way,
parking.
but why don't we
But this-
carpool so that we don't have to walk it twice?
There's also a fair amount of parking further down Chafeeville on the other side of the river,
Along the river. Yeah.
Over,
right where,
There's the pull-off, the big pull-off.
Yeah.
That's just across the river, yeah, right there, yeah,
From Bowser Road.
yeah.
that's,
especially on the east side.
Yeah, that's where it is, yeah.
that's also fine. I am not particularly good at coordinating how people meet. However we want to do it is fine by me. I just want to make sure everybody's safe in how we get there and that there's enough parking.
Do we want them, does it make sense to meet at the Bowser, where Bowser Road comes down to Chafeeville in that big parking area there, and then carpool up to the smaller parking?
Yeah,
Sure,
Yeah.
let's do that. Let's do
Yeah, that's a better place, yeah.
So where are we meeting?
We're gonna meet at the intersection of Bausa Road and Chafeeville. There's a small turnoff as you go north on Chafeeville.
Okay.
We'll meet in there. I will amend.
If you go down,
agenda meeting,
if you
so-
go down my road, Hanks Hill, turn at the corner and go down that other road, the shortcut over to by Walmart and stuff.
My phone will tell me.
What?
My phone will tell me.
Well, we're talking of a landmark, yeah, you can probably give it the intersection of Chafeeville and,
Yeah,
Bowser
and
Road.
there's an open area there
Yeah.
nearby.
it's,
I'll see the cars.
It'll probably hold, that area will probably hold about 30 cars.
Uh-huh.
So, great, all right.
Actually, you can see one in it.
Behold, a car. Actually, oh, that's nice. All right, so that will be management plans. Vicky, you want to talk about permanent preservation of parks?
I do.
If that's okay with you, Mr. Chair, we'll bounce to that before
Yeah, move back. in the agenda.
doing more plan of conservation development.
Consensus.
Okay, well, I don't know if you all got the list that Michael sent out of the permanently preserved properties and the ones that are not permanently preserved.
Yes,
Yeah,
Reference, I'm just gonna pull up
yeah.
Yep.
the screen here so we can put on our open space layer. Everything that is not hash marked is not permanently preserved. Only those things that have hash marks over them are
Mhm.
preserved, and Vicky breaks down in the list what is and what isn't.
Right. So I think what would be helpful tonight is to decide how to proceed. I
Yeah.
think to try to make decisions tonight is, I mean, we have enough decisions with the P O C D. But I think we need to decide how we're going to proceed and when. As I looked at this list of properties that are not permanently preserved, there are ones that frankly don't need it. Their interior, probably nothing is ever going to happen to them that the town would not wish to have happen. But there are others that are easily accessible from the road, are easily developed. And I do think we need to move forward with some of those properties. In the plan that we are looking at right now, there is a section about permanently preserving those properties that are not preserved at this time. And one of the first step is to develop criteria for deciding which ones to recommend for preservation, and also which ones are priority for preservation. So I think that's really the next step is I personally could probably come up with a list and priorities, but that's my list. And I think the council is going to want something more impersonal than that.
Well, why not do something like say that they are going to be prioritized in terms of number one, the risk that they would actually be developed, and number two, the value lost if they were developed. Say those are the two metrics, rank them on
Yep,
a
Yep.
scale of,
Okay. That's,
and
and I think, and frankly,
sounds,
that's enough.
Yeah. And the other thing that is probably maybe missing from this list is sometimes in getting grants to fund a project, there would, like the ones around Bicentennial Pond, they become protected. But that should be, I don't believe that's formally noted anyplace. You know, skimming this list, the Cullivan Farm on Clover Mill Road, you know, may fall into that category.
No, it is not permanently protected, Jim. The town bought it straight out.
I realize that, but talking with Jennifer, if property, if you applied for a grant to develop something that affected the property under the Land and Conservation Fund and state funding, you agree to protect the land.
So what Jim is saying is that because we agreed to protect the land around Schoolhouse Brook, we couldn't develop additional parcels that we purchased adjacent to that land because the state could bring a legal action against us that says you agreed to protect the land. Protecting the land per your agreement is not just the conservation easement is that you're not gonna take steps that will actively harm this land. And you have bought parcels next to it that are going to negatively impact
Yeah,
this
yeah.
land.
So wouldn't that be wouldn't that be taken into account into the rate, and if we had a ranking of the risk the property would be?
It
Yeah.
would, but the other thing is, in that case, it would have, we should be articulated in the land records that this is the situation. You know, any type of protection
Okay.
doesn't make any difference if nobody knows about it in 100 years. You know? See, and
Which
that's,
might be Vicky's point with it is.
yeah,
there's
that's
limited-
my
Yeah,
point.
and I think Vicky's got a good point that we need to be moving forward on this.
Yeah,
And she very rightly makes a point. This is goal 3.1. Natural resources within Mansfield's public and private open spaces are protected and well managed. Strategy B, permanently protect important natural resources in Mansfield from development. And the first two goals are basically what Vicky is raising up today.
Also,
Yeah.
then we can say that we decided we're gonna assess the risk and value of each and rank them that way and decide which to prioritize and
Sounds good.
go forward.
So
Okay.
but we have to, and I would be inclined to give ourselves a failure on that.
We haven't done it, period.
Basically to highlight that there's still a lot of work to be done.
initiate, but not done.
Yeah.
So how are we going to proceed on this?
Do you want a subcommittee? Do you want Vicky to have a time where we can get together that isn't these meetings to tackle it?
Yep,
Okay,
that's the, I mean, but I'm open to whatever will work and soon.
so I think one of the limiting factors is we're just gonna need more meetings to move forward on all of the stuff we're attempting to do right now, or something's gonna have to wait till March. POCD, we're gonna need to call a special meeting in February. That's probably gonna be mostly POCD. We can continue to do site walks of some of the other sites that we're trying to ground truth for our oldest management plan updates, but actually getting those out, I think, is getting kicked down the road. So do you want to dedicate time at this February special meeting we're gonna do to talk about permanent protection? Will we have time if we're going to be talking about the POCD?
I hate to bring this up, but if we're saying that we're gonna kick the management plans down the road a bit and that this stuff is of greater priority, then perhaps on Monday at the time we designate, instead, we should be trying to meet to discuss this.
Well, we could
And we
do
can do the
that.
site walk when it's warmer.
That's a point.
Well, we could do that, but first, coward. Second, I joke. We can do that. That is fine. What does everyone else think?
I think that's an excellent idea. One, because it may snow on Saturday. And if there's snow on the ground, there is no way we are going up on Coney Rock. It would not be safe.
I wonder if,
So but can you get to a meeting at 10 o'clock on Monday?
well, I was gonna get to a meeting outside at 10 o'clock on Monday.
Oh, okay, okay.
They were available for that.
Yeah.
I will simply repost that tomorrow morning. I can revise the agenda. And that's fine. If we want to instead meet here,
Mhm. Room
I,
might be occupied.
yeah, I don't know what room situation is. We can do Zoom,
Mhm.
which has its own benefits and problems.
Yeah.
If we would like to just call it hybrid, and then I can figure out what the room situation is after this meeting, and then I'll just
Yeah.
send everybody an email
Yeah,
saying,
because there's also the couple of meeting rooms over the community center.
We can
But
find
the, but
somewhere.
the other thing I'm wondering is,
I think it's more effective to meet in person.
Yeah.
I think
where,
this, I
where,
think this could
where,
be more accomplished by meeting in person.
Yeah.
Planet PSAD stuff.
yeah,
I agree as well.
One thing that I think would be helpful is if we're gonna have a meeting in February,
Yeah,
if Vicky,
Yep,
if by February, we could have a sense of which of these parcels are most at risk. I'm not familiar with the specifics of these
Yeah.
parcels the way you are.
Well, so I was thinking that
Yeah.
if we were meeting on
Monday,
Monday
we
to
do
do
the
this, we would
parcels.
go down through the list and
Yeah.
label risk and value, and then we say we have a priority
and
and.
we can have Vicky's report on open space acquisitions out, and I can have the map up, and we can zoom in on the map and see where everything is.
What we
and,
probably need is some kind of definition of how we're judging risk and.
yeah,
I think it would be the location that would probably determine that. In other words, is it on a road? Is it a mile within a protected area, surrounded by protected? I think we can do it by looking at the map. I mean, I know where they are because the map is in my mind, but I know that you folks don't have that.
The
So
other-
I like the idea of looking at the properties on the map so that you know where they are. Or, I mean, I could do this, I could come and propose a list with rankings based on risk and value. If you want to do that, that would give us something to start with. I could get that ready for Monday, so we'd have something to start with.
Yeah. And
I think that would make things go much more efficiently.
Yeah, I do too, yeah. And for example, I could say whatever, low risk, and I could just say interior.
Yeah.
That way it would be clear why it's a low risk property.
Legal history might enter into it as well.
Yeah,
like-
right. I mean, a lot, it's a pond, it's wet.
And-
That kind of thing.
Okay, what I'm wondering, because we've been asked to review all these goals. That means we're looking at this, and I was thinking that I might get in touch with Tony, the mayor, and give her a heads up, how do we want to proceed on this goal that we failed on? Start to get her buy-in and the town manager.
Well,
But use the emphasis of, we've been asked to review the goals in the plan of conservation and development.
Let,
given-
I don't think that's relevant. I mean, we've got a lot on our plates. We haven't got to everything.
Yeah,
This is an opportunity to essentially reset the clock.
yeah, well, what I'm thinking of is some reason to touch the town manager and the mayor
For what?
about we're gonna start working on this.
Well,
on
we have
preserving
been talking
land.
about it a little bit to some extent anyways recently.
Yeah, but
So
we haven't tapped those people on the shoulder and say, guess what's coming?
might not
so,
want to.
so what I
That's why I'm
would,
bringing it up as a discussion.
what
item.
I would recommend is that, I the normal flow path is stuff happens with our committees in our office for planning department. Planning views, when we're working on our day-to-day operations, we view all of you in our committees and commissions and boards as our projects. When our projects need to rise to interact with the town council, we speak to the town manager and get him on board with where we are.
Yeah.
Town manager tells us if we need to coordinate with finance or legal before we speak to the mayor. So what happens is from you to us, from us to manager, from manager to mayor and deputy mayor. And we do it in that order so that way all along the path until we get to the elected people who actually set our budget and set policy, everybody in the flow pattern has answers to likely questions, because the thing we don't want to have happen is for the mayor to ask the town manager, why are we doing it this way? And the town manager is learning about it at the same time. The
Yeah.
town manager likes to be able to explain to the mayor what's going on. Myself or Jennifer are sometimes in those meetings where we explain things to the town manager, but then the town manager has the question, the answers for the mayor, and the mayor doesn't have to necessarily interact with the planning department. So if we want to do that, let's do that after we have something to present to the manager, after we go through Vicky's initial pathway of saying, we think it's important to do this because of the POCD. We think this is still relevant. These are some of our recommendations. We'd like to bring these to council, and then start the discussion with the manager, but let's wait to do that until after we have Vicky's just initial list,
Okay.
and we have our Monday meeting to
Well-
discuss.
Well, and then the park, and then the committee has a recommendation.
Yes,
Yeah,
Correct me if I'm misremembering. But I thought we were going to soften up the council on this concept by having permanent preservation proposed in one of the first updated management plans that we brought to the council for approval.
That was the plan, Ken. But then the pandemic intervened
yeah,
and it all went away. So we're starting fresh. And I think what Michael has laid out is the way to go. I think we need to make a recommendation as a committee, and then Michael will take it to the rest of the planning staff, and then planning staff will go to the manager, and so on.
so I think the first thing, the first action item, Russ, and we talked about for Monday's meeting of deciding on which properties are our priorities.
Right.
And the POCD suggests that we evaluate key natural resources and create a priority list of the properties.
Well, that's gonna go into
Perfect.
value, so that's taken into account.
Right. Yeah.
Prioritization we're discussing. I
Yeah.
mean, I think
Perfect.
probably the other, based on where these discussions have gone in the past, is that we'll probably want to have some kind of idea of, okay, this is the priority list, here's how we want to protect it, we want a third party.
Right,
or-
so once you give me that list, I will go meet with the planning folks, and then we will meet with the town attorney and talk about, we have these pathways, we think that these make sense, and the town attorney will tell us what he thinks in his
Is the
legal
best
opinion
way.
is gonna work. Some of these may be different. I'm thinking right now, one of the highest priority ones for preservation that Vicky is certainly thinking of is common fields, is not protected, but is on multiple roads and is agricultural. There are different methods for preserving agricultural land than preserving forest land, and so we may use a slightly different method. We may be able to work with the USDA to sell the town, to sell the town's development rights for that land, and that way it winds up permanently protected because there's a second agency involved. But we couldn't do that for forest lands.
Okay.
Right? So the exact vehicle might be,
So we don't need to make that decision.
You don't need-
All we have to do is come up with this priority list.
come up with the
Yeah.
priority list, and then we'll figure out
Which-
how to make stuff happen.
Vicky might have an idea of walking in, and so that actually should hopefully go pretty efficiently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. To me, there are some that just rise to the top.
Yeah,
So, I don't think it will be that difficult to
One
have a
time.
priority list.
Add it together and we have a list.
Math,
yeah.
I can do basic.
Okay, one of the other things for you to do is when we were talking citing the new elementary school, Jennifer considered a lot of the land around the middle school in Bicentennial Pond to be protected because of other grants that had been received on them. And we have to codify that protection and get it properly recorded so it can be found.
If there were grants that are permanently protecting things, but we don't have them in good order, then tell me and I will start,
Well,
I will
that's
start
the
looking for what
thing
it
that we
is.
have, they're not purchase grants, they're development grants.
Right, but
Yeah.
if there is a thing and we know it is permanently protected, but we don't have the documents to prove it, I will work on getting it on the land records. I'm currently working on this for the piece at Vinton School where we still can't find the deed. Where we have
You're
every,
never going to find it, Michael.
the attorney to this today has asked me to do one final search in a specific way. Otherwise, we're gonna do a quiet title action. So
Thank you.
we're going to quiet title. He just asked me to do one more thing.
Basically, he needs a little more documentation.
Yes, and so we can do that. It's just tell me specifically where we're missing stuff and I will work with our attorney to get those things documented. So you guys don't have to make any decisions on how do we do the legal stuff. You just need to point me in the direction of we want to protect these and then I can work on implementing.
Yeah.
So do
Most
we,
of the stuff I'm talking about is in Jennifer's mind, the best of my knowledge, so we have to somehow pull it.
I work next week.
Yeah, I realize that.
do we need to move to have any kind of, to make a movement to, change the meeting
Yeah,
on
so
Monday and then to move on from the management plan stuff to whatever, I don't know.
Do we?
yeah,
do we
so
have a formal motion to
what-
change the?
what I would like you to do, because this meeting was noticed, is I'd like you to make a motion to amend the meeting location and agenda
Mhm,
set for Monday's meeting,
mhm.
giving Ken a chance to write.
Yeah.
To instead be a hybrid meeting at Town Hall discussing the topic of permanent preservation.
Well, I think we'll have time for the POCD too.
This is a special meeting, so let us, if we want to talk POCD at Monday,
Let's list that as well.
then let's list that as well. We can only
Everything.
talk about stuff on a special meeting that is on the agenda.
Okay. What
So
you
I'll
said,
list both.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Permanent preservation and continuing POC discussion.
I do all that.
Miranda makes such a motion.
Okay.
Miranda makes the convenient motion that Ken is writing down.
okay,
Do we?
the
take-
motion that Miranda made and nobody has seconded yet.
Yeah, well, it's.
I second.
okay.
Vicky seconds.
Yeah, okay.
Is that we've moved to amend the meeting location and agenda set for Monday's meeting to be a hybrid meeting at Town Hall to discuss permanent protection of lands and continuing the POCD discussion.
Anybody opposed to the motion? Okay, hearing none, I'll consider
Great.
the
Do
motion
we have a
carried.
quorum?
You do. You have a board of 7. The Harringtons and Charlotte are gone. Juliana is not here, but Miranda is here. So we have 4 out of our 8, one of whom is an alternate. So we have a quorum.
I believe we
Barely.
have 2 alternates, actually.
We have 2 alternate slots. But yes, you still have a quorum. You can
Yeah.
make the motion. Good. I will amend that. I will do that tomorrow morning. I will do that from my couch drinking hot chocolate. So I'll take care of that. And then we'll do that and I'll book a room while I'm here. I will send you out the room location
Yeah.
revision. Okay, so that planned. The POCD, returning to our favorite topic. Jumping back in where we were, we just finished up strategy A, which was about educational resources for connecting people and, or rather actively conserving natural resources. Strategy B is addressing specific natural resource protection challenges with educational
So
materials.
this is 2-1-B1.
This is 2-1-B1. This is, nope, 21B1's not for us. We're not on here.
Nice.
Yeah.
We're looking at, we are the Open Space Preservation Committee. So 21B2, provide information on land management practices that support a healthy, diverse habitat for plants and wildlife, provide a balance between forest preservation and agricultural production, things like native plants, use, invasive species eradication, forest management, this kind of stuff, providing that information to people.
Who's people?
To residents.
Okay.
Providing this information to residents on these kinds of things.
Builders, developers, landscape contractors, permit applicants, and private landowners. Use existing materials from nonprofits and from state and federal agencies.
This is ongoing.
This is
Ongoing.
definitely ongoing,
It should be continued to be ongoing.
and I think we can do more. There's some stuff I've done about aquatic invasive plant removal, pamphlets I've published and made available in both electronically and in town hall. There's definitely more information I can do.
Brochures.
And you've actually sponsored a couple of activities.
Yeah, I need to get better at that. I'm not as funny as the statement, I'm not a planner is, when I am a planner by definition, I'm bad at planning events. And so that is a learning curve since I arrived at this job. But I think I'm getting better at getting this kind of stuff out. But yes, ongoing, could do more. This is, strategy C is not really for your committee. It's about providing access to and funding for training for land management. And that's really a staff thing for Parks and Rec and DPW out of the operating budget. And strategy D is about increasing volunteer participation in resource conservation activities. It has no associated goals. The associated goals are in a separate part of the plan. But I think noting this under 2.1D, volunteer participation is really, really hard to wrangle. It's something that we've been struggling with a lot in terms of, we have a form online where if you want to volunteer, you fill it out and it gets sent to us, and then we try to engage with folks, but without a dedicated volunteer coordinator,
There needs to be more on social media.
my department just doesn't have the capacity.
I mean, people don't know to go to that website.
No, they don't.
No,
We need more social
We
media.
used to be through parks, the Friends of Mansfield Parks or something like that. But it kind of went by the wayside.
yeah,
I am absolutely the wrong person to be a social media person coordinating volunteers.
no,
I don't use Facebook or Twitter, or I don't use anything of social media. So I'm the wrong person to help with that. But I agree there does need to be an increase in that. And I think a lot of this ties back to some of the earlier comments that have been made about need outreach better.
it's coming down to that the town really needs somebody whose job title is dedicated to, social media presence.
So is this ongoing?
Yes,
I don't know whether that lives in the,
Volunteer participation is an ongoing issue. A volunteer coordinator and better outreach likely via social media would help.
great.
Yeah.
Goal 2.2, Mansfield has healthy watersheds with high quality ground and surface water resources and aquatic habitats. Nothing in strategy A is actually the purview of this body.
B1.
But B1 is a Parks and Rec thing. Pursue preservation and stewardship of state greenways along the Willimantic, Fenton, Mount Hope, and Natchog rivers and their tributary stream belts.
And it's an ongoing activity
Yep,
and it should continue.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't
don't
think,
think we need to say anything more.
I don't think there's anything else to say other than if we
Yeah.
had more money and more people willing to sell us land, then we'd buy more land, then preserve it.
Yeah,
Planning. Lot of planning. Stormwater plans.
And we're down to 2.3.
2.31. Develop, update, and implement forest management plans for all town-owned forests.
Tabled.
Well, this is specific to forest management.
So, yes, this is specifically for forest management plans, as opposed to the park management plans. So what I can tell you right now is I am currently working on a grant to do this.
yeah,
There was a big grant announcement that came out, and I am working on a grant that will do a forest inventory for all 1,500 acres of our forests that are in our parks.
yeah.
Um,
This is an ongoing constrained by resources.
So would we like to, technically, we've done one. We have one forest management plan that is current. It is for wet and woods.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh,
not,
what about Dunham Forest?
No, Dunham Town Forest has one.
Yeah, we inherited it. Basically with the.
So
property.
2 plans are completed.
Yes.
yes.
Yeah,
2.3A1.
But basically, for the purposes of this exercise, it's ongoing and it should continue to be
yeah,
it
Yep.
should continue to be an action item.
and there might be some note in there about existing. The downtown, the existing plans should be reviewed. Yeah, Dunham
think
Town
most of the
Forest
10-year
is well
plans-
past the time when it should be looked at again.
And the other thing is that it's an operating budget constraint.
Yep.
Yeah,
2 plans are completed, review may be needed, efforts for this are ongoing, parentheses, grant being written and are constrained by resources.
Perfect.
Yeah.
2382, work with forestry organizations to encourage forest owners to develop and implement management plans. Have we done?
Actually, the town did do that
yeah,
back in 2006, quite a long time ago. That was when there was a huge outreach to landowners in conjunction with some other towns and the Last Green Valley. And we did have a workshop for forest landowners. Trying to remember who, I don't, it wasn't Steve Broderick, maybe Tom Worthley talked.
yeah,
And then he did a field trip at Coney Rock to talk about forest management strategies. So we did do it in the past. It was
And-
I'm trying to think, the talk was well attended. The field trip was not as well attended. So we have done it, but
and-
the question is, do we want to try to do it again?
and we've done
That's
stuff
previous to this
yeah,
Plan.
time block.
yeah, and we've supported Forest Legacy
Well,
in the,
I think, again, for the purposes of this exercise, it's a good goal. It's listed as ongoing. To the extent we have resources and energy, we could do it again. I think the Wet and Woods, doing a talk and then a field trip to Wet and Woods
mhm.
would be a good reprise of what we did earlier.
So I guess my way of coding this is definitely something we've done before. But we haven't done this in a long time. But we agree it's still a good thing to do and that we should do it again.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't call it abandoned.
no, I would,
No,
it's ongoing.
yeah,
it's
Okay.
ongoing. Yeah,
Town pursued this with a large outreach effort and workshop in 2006. This should be pursued more in the future with possible repeat of 2006 efforts.
I think that
Yeah.
the thing to consider here is something I picked up from the first session.
Hmm.
And it was a quote from Quentin, who said, this POCD is an enabling document.
Yeah.
If it's listed as a goal and an action in the POCD, if we have the time and resources, we can work on it. If it's not in the POCD, what gives us the ability to say we're gonna spend the town's time?
And money and resources and,
Yeah.
yeah,
So by putting it in here and keeping it in here, we have the ability to sponsor a workshop.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. that's it.
We don't need 3, because that's conservation and sustainability. Parks Advisory. Sponsor demonstration sites on both public and private properties to highlight good management practices. This is very similar to the previous one. From
What letter are we in?
2.3A4.
Okay, still A.
Yep. This is similar to, I want to say 214.
Yes,
This is very similar to 214. So,
and again, we've done some, we should keep it in.
yep, ongoing.
Yeah.
But I think one of the reasons I think they identify both these as medium term is that we didn't have to go do it this year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm putting it as ongoing?
I would say ongoing. We've done them before. We have more in the works. They just take a while.
But again, it's not gonna be a one and done, we should do it periodically.
Right.
Yeah.
well, I mean, I think as the town does do forest management projects, like Wetton Woods, that would be the perfect opportunity to have one of these events after the work is done.
And it might be a good idea to coordinate it with ECFLA.
Yep,
Did that happen? Did 5 happen?
I don't know. That's one of the ones on my sheet that I've marked with 3 question marks. So yeah, so moving into strategy B here. Number 1, manage early successional grasslands and shrubland habitats on town-owned property. We do this
Meadow.
with Merrow Meadow, so we can definitely say it's ongoing. I don't think we have a lot of early successional grassland. We definitely,
Porter Meadow,
Or meadow.
yep.
There's it's moved well past early successional, but off of Deerfield Lane, there's like 8 acres of now scrub. I haven't visited in quite a few years.
we have quite a few potentials, but it's one of those is getting a list and developing the management plans for it. For instance, you got, what's the one, off Dodd Road,
Southward,
southward? That's a big grassland there.
Yeah,
yeah, which is an agricultural field.
yeah, well. Hypothetically, it hasn't been for a little while, but, yes,
And there's quite a bit of, early successional on the north part of Mount Hope Park.
that's also true.
Yeah.
So I think, I'm sure Miranda has already synthesized this, but ongoing comments would say something like, actively managed for this at Merrow Meadow, and Porter Meadow. There are other sites in town where more regular management of this habitat type would be warranted.
Ongoing active effort at Porter or Merrow Meadow in particular. Other properties may be in need of this and should be assessed.
Exactly. Like what I said, but with like 10 less words. Damn, you're good at that. Train staff, not you. Manage invasive species on town-owned properties. We're trying, not you. Encourage participation by private landowners in programs on natural resource conservation and invasive management, such as EQIP. Have we encouraged it? I'm sure this is something we would encourage if someone said, I'm gonna do this, but I haven't sent out
My
anything in my 2
One
years to like do
experience
this.
with this is that when we've been looking at conservation easements and the Conservation Commission, there was one person in the past who very much wanted to remove invasives from his easement and had been told that he needed to apply for a waiver for that activity in order to do it, and was upset that there were paperwork loopholes to jump through to remove an invasive
we-
on his property.
Should we request the town council give a blanket waiver and delegate staff to approve?
Actually, yes, I had never considered that, but yes, we should do that.
'Cause that- that's
Because
why-
I just remember being on doing this one property and the property owner being a little bit irritated that he wanted to do something which was clearly in the interest of
Yeah.
the property, but that he had to apply for a waiver to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the
Just red
older,
tape kind of
yeah, no, that
irritation.
does very much
Yeah,
seem
yeah,
like red
some-
tape. It can be
some
how the
of them are
conservation.
worded pretty strict with no exception. That's what I mean, but if we
He hadn't been
get,
told that by
yeah.
us, he'd been told that.
yeah, but
for
if we get
channels.
the town council to create approve a waiver, you know, for invasive control and delegate to staff
Yeah,
the administration.
that's a good idea.
Invasive removal and easements. I mean, it was a conservation.
Yeah.
easement.
Yeah,
So, and of course, the difficult thing with those is, how they're written, because they're individual to the property, but.
yeah, but if it's a
That's a good
blanket, on,
So,
I feel like this happens ad hoc.
yeah, this is an ad hoc thing, encouraging participation in these kinds of things. We're not doing it, it's just ad hoc, so ongoing. The one I have no idea about is the following one, which Miranda had focused on when we got to this section. Did we ever work with CT Deep to develop a deer management program for town-owned land?
I'm not aware of
Not that I know of.
Awesome, so that's one that we can solidly put in the
abandoned.
Dismissed.
dismissed.
Yeah.
We never did it.
But
But
we
do,
should,
but do we want to do it?
yeah, I think I could use a way to get rid of more deer on my property. I had to chase one down the driveway on the way here.
I think that.
Here's your rifle, that's the way to get deer on your property.
Well, I've only managed to have 2 successful harvests by hunters this year.
What we need
Well,
is
that's
more
what's
venison
chasing
butchers.
Down the driveway, they're scared.
So I guess the question here is, this was not done to the best of our knowledge. If we want to do it, should we say under consideration?
Or consider?
We've got, if we got to fit into one of our blocks, it's not complete, it's not ongoing, and it wasn't initiated. It's not unknown, we didn't do this. So if we never started it, it's not abandoned. So if we just never started it at all, I think it's dismissed unless we want to list it as under consideration of, well, we didn't do it, but now that we're thinking about it,
Good idea.
now that we're thinking about it, we should
Yeah.
probably do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I go for under consideration.
there was some discussion about opening Schoolhouse Brook Park to hunting. And came to the conclusion that was unfeasible.
I feel like that's how you wind up with people getting shot by hunters on town land.
That's why, you know,
Yeah,
yeah, I
Get those
remember.
sound shots off.
Yeah, I remember calculating the regulations on how powerful a hunting bow had to be. There was only about 10 acres that you could
we're
have.
safe.
Yeah, given, assuming everybody stayed on the trail.
That would be nice, alas.
Mhm.
Maybe you get rid of some of the bikers.
More on that to come. Partner with Strategy C.
Okay.
Partner with regional, state, and federal agencies to promote practices that improve soil health and prevent soil erosion and contamination.
Ongoing, good idea, keep it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'm sure we work with NRCS and they care about soil health. Farm Bureau definitely does from the Ag Committee side.
Yeah.
But we'll just say sure, ongoing.
Yeah.
2.4.
Nothing applies.
Nope, nothing in 2.4A. Nothing in 2.4B. So 2.5.
Nothing applies.
We got one.
C2.
C2. So this is one that I looked at and went, Evaluate properties in flood hazard areas for potential acquisition as they become available.
Well, yeah, we do if they become available.
Well, so see, that's the thing. I don't know how useful this action item is in terms of as they become available. The way this is written to me as a planner is what this is saying is I should highlight every property in the flood zone on Realtor with a notification of when it comes on the market, and then we should think about whether or not we should buy it, and whether we should be actively pursuing this because we're trying to buy out the flood zone to get people out of it. That's how, with this saying, evaluate properties in the flood hazard zone for potential acquisition as they become available. I think we have to change the wording on this. Because we have not really.
But don't owners have to come to us anyways with an offer before we pursue something? So isn't that kind of how it has to be?
I mean,
On occasion, we have reached out.
I don't think we've ever evaluated something because it's in the flood hazard zone. And the way that this looks to me is that the plan is instructing us that we should be looking to acquire stuff because it's in the flood hazard zone.
Well, and I think for the most part, if the entire parcel is in the flood hazard zone, we see that there's no threat of development.
Right.
But having said that, if we're trying to protect greenways along the river valleys, that's the flood hazard zone. So we should be looking at those parcels when they become available.
So is this redundant then?
Yeah.
Well, and having looked at having read the whole damn plan, there's a lot of redundancy in here.
Yeah. The
Doesn't
other
mean we need to
thing is,
accept more.
the way that's worded, it could be applied to an existing house.
Yes. I am very uncertain what this one is instructing me to do. Because from a master planning standpoint, the fact that New England was settled in an area in a time when we weren't really master planning means that our patterns of development are bad, and we shouldn't have settled as extensively along the floodplain as we did, with as few flood controls as we have. And if I am taking this in the maximalist way, this is telling me buy houses on the floodplain and tear them down.
That's the point.
And if I'm taking this in the minimalist way, this is just that we should revise our open space acquisition criteria to add, is it in the floodplain? Because there's implicit value in making floodplains open space because it minimizes risk from flood by making sure the flood capacity stays untouched, right? So like, does that add a +1 on our every time we evaluate something as well? There's floodplains, so getting it would be good, right? I don't know what this is telling me to do.
Yeah.
And because I have no idea what this is telling me to do, part of me thinks, well, this must be the first time I'm thinking about this, and that means that I don't know how much this body has thought about this in its decision-making process up to this point. And this can mean whatever we want it to mean.
So leave
Yeah.
it.
So leave it in because it's enabling. But in terms of where we're going with this, under consideration, because we haven't actually done it in the past.
Well, we have you know, like I'm thinking of the, and I'm trying to
I
remember
mean, your
the name.
minimalist approach sounds like a good one to pursue.
Yeah, we looked at the property just downstream from Eagleville Preserve. And I'm pulling a blank on the name.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, we decided it wasn't gonna be developed anyway because of the railroad access and
yeah.
the flooding.
And the difficulty of extending Eagleville, it would have required a fairly elaborate bridge to cross that stream reliably. But, yeah, it's like leave it in as an ongoing, but with a note that its wording should be clarified.
Sure.
I mean, if it's to minimize impacts from future floods, if the town owns it, certainly nobody else will be impacted.
Right.
The town owns it and puts a dog park there. Dog owners are gonna be impacted.
Dogs can
But,
swim.
yeah, but that's one way to deal with the dog waste problem.
The
Oh.
solution to pollution is dilution. So if there's a flood that floods the dog park, presumably we've had a lot of dilution of the water.
Well,
Yes,
you know, that doesn't always work.
yeah.
Really depends on how much stuff you've got and how toxic it is.
Solution worked fine. We got a lot of things that we never detected when we looked for them. And then they improved GC mass spec to measuring parts per trillion instead of parts per billion. And all this crap is still there. It's just lower levels.
So what you're
Yeah.
telling me is that if we hadn't measured, we wouldn't be worried about it.
Right.
Okay, so I'll take that.
Yeah,
Where is the wording again?
So evaluate properties in
Right.
flood hazard areas for potential acquisitions that become available. We're still on two. Nothing else in strategy C is really us. It's mostly public works and emergency management, which for some reason lives with the fire marshal, which makes a lot of sense for some emergencies and very little sense for other emergencies.
yeah, but you have to have someplace to hang that hat and
Yeah.
authority.
I kept seeing references to Bassett Bridge Road washing out in flood conditions
Yes,
in the plan.
it does.
But I don't think the road itself washes out.
Yes, it does. I've seen it washed out, not all the way across, but partially.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, that causeway by the boat launch can get some very interesting swirls and currents and stuff.
Wording of this action point needs clarification. Is unclear if as they become available implies active pursual of posted sales or merely consideration of flood hazard and open space acquisition criteria.
Great.
Right.
Well, we're
Yeah,
done.
if there's a radical difference between the level of the two pools above and below Bassett Bridge Road, you get a whirlpool going down the culvert,
Yeah. Okay.
which could cause lots of erosion, I could see.
So we only have one left in chapter 2. Which is strategy goal 2.6A1.
Okay.
2.6A1 is encourage developers to identify natural resource protection goals specific to the subject property as part of the pre-evaluation process.
We do that all the time.
I think we do this all the time. I think when we receive an application, we forward it to you if there's pertinent stuff for trails or conservation, for anything about
Yeah.
impact on physical aspects
Yeah,
of water and
that whole
soil.
list of referral agencies. from planning and zoning or referral groups.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think it's ongoing. I think we keep it in.
Yep, and I think we keep doing it. Okay, that's chapter 2.
Yay.
That is the ones that we have to look at in chapter 2.
Okay.
So, good job.
Yeah.
Because lest I open a door of anything else, because I know it's past 9, was there anything in reading chapter 2, for those who have read it, that we think is glaring? We don't have to delve deep into it, but if we want to come back to these and think about what do we think is wrong, or what do we think needs to be touched on more, we can talk about that. Because Vicky's got a lot of notes and Ken's got a lot of notes,
Yeah,
and we can leave them for another day.
Right. The other thing too is a lot of my notes are about things that need to be updated.
Mhm.
Statistics, time, that sort of thing. I'm thinking I can just send you this to you in an email. I don't
Yeah.
even think we need to discuss it. Something refers to something happening in 2006, but we want to refer to something more recent. That's something that you can do without our having to discuss it.
yeah, yeah. The other thing that I've thought in that whole thing is to, we've talked of classifying the town land. And that could be included at least as and update the inventory to include more information, maybe as a appendix to the plan. But our discussion about, what's at different places.
Are you thinking of the classifications in the master plan, in the parks master plan?
On that nature, but something that how we feel the properties function for the town.
Do we have a list like that?
No, we don't.
I don't think this is focused on the natural systems of the town,
Yeah,
not just the town properties.
yeah.
That'll
I
be-
fully realize that in chapter 2, but in terms of activity that we should have around the plan of conservation development. And I'm seeing it more as an appendix than, incorporated. And Vicky's, pointing out some of the statistics that need to be updated.
Well, there's also text that needs to be updated.
Yeah, too.
There's
Yeah.
different, there's a lot of the language about water resources. The water quality information is dated.
Yeah,
The MS4 is well underway. And it's affecting towns' ability to develop and redevelop roads. Because they gotta spend a lot more on culverts.
Mhm.
yeah.
Did they ever move the hazardous waste storage area out of the aquifer protection area?
I believe so.
One thing that the invasive species and impacts of invasive species, since this plan was written, we have lost a lot of oak trees because of drought combined with fuzzy moss, whatever they call them now.
Spongy moth.
We've lost ash trees.
Yep.
We're losing our beach.
Yep.
And we have mugwort moving in,
What trees will we have?
birch and red maple.
Great.
The deer don't,
And black cherry.
the deer don't like to eat.
So the natural resources are much further imperiled.
Mhm.
The other thing is some of the evaluation concepts may have changed since 2015.
Yep.
How we look at what's a unique value, what our ecological understanding are
Yeah,
for carbon sequestration, the effect of drought, the risk of fire. What salt does to the soil.
Yeah,
And some of that's, UConn's done some interesting work on
yeah,
how soil has been affected by road salt.
Yep, that's why we've gone to using do the pre-treat and use the treated salts that bind to the road easier, and you need
Yeah.
less salt in order to.
yeah, we also we moved to the salts because of the potential impact of sand on streams.
Right.
And
But
the
salt
need to
also,
clean culverts.
Yeah,
One of the things that in salt that bothers me is when I drive down the treated roads, they just look like they could be clear black ice.
yes,
mm,
okay.
yeah, that's
But
good.
there's a lot of ecological understandings that have evolved since
Yeah.
2015.
Yeah, and you're right about MS4 and the stormwater stuff. The old stormwater guide was 2002, and they put out the new one last year. So all that stuff will have to be updated. But seeing,
A concept that came to me as I was looking at this, there's a section in there about dams.
Mhm.
There are some places that we shied away from, was it Hanson's Pond? What's the one?
McCauglin's Pond.
McCaughlin's Pond,
McLaughlin Pond.
because of the dam. That dam hasn't had anything done with it,
right,
because the landowner doesn't have money.
Mhm.
Could a tax abatement to encourage dam owners to deal with these hazard dams, a temporary tax abatement, be a benefit to the town?
Yeah, the question I'm having is, since like the McCaughlin Pond property is probably in 490, so its taxes are minimal. You know,
And if he does deal with the dam, he improves the value of the property tremendously,
yeah,
yeah,
removes the risk, so.
but then
so I
there's
don't know.
dams like the Hanks Hill Dam, you know, that, you know, it would be a concern. You know, there's lots of different, yeah, that's a good thought. Explore the,
I'll ask finance.
yeah,
It's a good idea. Could be a good recommendation in the POCD for
yeah.
next 10 years.
Okay.
Cool.
Looking at the time,
Thank you.
what else on our agenda do we want to take a moment with? Do we need an executive session?
Nope. Nope.
Okay, we should, okay,
No other pertinent communications. We talked about the meeting on Monday. Future meetings, we should set a date for a special meeting in
February,
February.
yeah,
Does the second Thursday of February, February 13th, at this time work for everyone? Or is that the day before Valentine's Day?
That's not relevant point, but I have to check. It might. Oh, come on, I just tried.
Works for me.
February 13th. I will be here.
where does that fall in your semester?
Uh, in the middle of an observation and grading exam one. But that weekend I'm going up to the mountains,
Good for
That'll
you.
be nice.
skiing across the lake.
I thought you stayed inside when it was cold.
I do, other than this one weekend a year, when I put on a brave face and convince my kids that this is what you're supposed to do in winter,
That it's fun to go do this in winter.
right?
Vicky, will that work for you?
Oh, yes.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Okay, well, we've got 4, so
yeah,
we'll do it. Put that on the
Yeah.
calendar.
yeah, I actually have a PNRC save the date on my calendar.
Yeah, I've made it a point to put a save the date on the alternate Thursdays.
It's a good plan. Okay. Great.
Is there anything to update on Hertzler?
No, we don't have to talk in executive session because that was already approved by the council. The Mr. Sam Hertzler is in discussions with obtaining an attorney just because there's a whole thing about quiet title. There's a quiet title thing that came up that I don't know I mentioned to you since the last time that we talked, but the Hertzler brothers have to finish quieting title on the property. They're in talks of getting an attorney, and my attorney earlier today gave me a bunch of information, which I called and gave them about what they need to do. So in progress. Government moves slowly.
We'll get back to you on that. Yeah. Okay. We have nothing else. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
I move.
I knew you would jump at that one. Well,
Hey, Vicky, are you opposed to adjourning?
No,
Okay.
perfect. And so we are adjourned.
9:16.
9:16. I don't know if you caught it, Ken. Charlotte left at 7:36. She had to leave.
I don't know that I've ever recorded late arrivals or early departures.
Sounds great.
Yes.
Let's end the recording.